Hi there guys, this is not going to be a demo of the fly rig, there are loads of those out there. This is just a couple of tweaks that I would like to make it perfect for me, and I'm interested to know whether other people would like the same modifications. I really like the basic concept of this pedal. The form factor is ideal for me. I use it with a little battery powered thing, and that's my whole rig. Kind of. I also use this drive pedal. This is my Barber burn unit. I've used this for a number of years. And that's the first thing that I would want to modify. The drive in this, the OMG, is a killer drive, but for sort of heavy rock stuff. I find that I can get a clearer, smoother sound from this running into the Sounds amp. Now the Sounds amp is fantastic. It turns any amp into something that is very accepting of a drive pedal, and that's kind of my main selling point with this. There are other units out there that have drive and delay in the same enclosure, and for me they don't work because you would either have to run dirt on the amp, in which case your drive will sound better, but your delay will sound muckier, or you could run the delay into a clean amp, but then your drive would have to work into something that's completely Fender clean, and not all of them do that. And this particular drive, the OMG, certainly doesn't work in that way. If you could have something like a burn unit, or a dude pedal, a Jetta GS124, something in the, for want of a better description, Dumble camp, in place of the OMG, that would make it infinitely better for me. However, I wouldn't want to sacrifice the OMG. And you wouldn't need to do that because there's a button on here that can flick between a fuzz and the OMG. I would sacrifice the fuzz in place of having the OMG where that is, and then having a smooth drive in place of the OMG as the basic pedal sound. The other thing I would like to change, the other really big thing, I want a pre-post button on the boost. I play some rock and roll, kind of like 50s rock and roll, and I play jump blues lines over it. So I want a boost to get over the top of the band, but having it only pre means that all roads lead to more distortion. So I'd like a button on it that would mean that it was after the Sounds amp, but before the delay. And Tech 21 can do that because they actually have that button on the RK5 version 2 standard model, not the Richie Kotzen version. They have a pre-post. Now this also has a compressor, and I'm not sure whether it's an either or. It would be really cool if they could keep the compressor and also have a pre-post. But for me, I would sacrifice the compressor in favor of having a pre-post on the boost. I like compression, but I'm not over keen on single knob compressors. I prefer like a compression sustain as opposed to a limiting sort of action. Other than that, there's only a couple of small tweaks. The tuner is very good, but there's two things I'd want to tweak about it. The first is it's not over large. I actually wear glasses. I don't wear them on camera because it'll shine off the glasses, and I don't wear them on stage because they steam up when I sing. So I can see this, but only just. It would be cool if it was just a snip larger display. And the other thing about it is that it outputs a kind of an odd combination of notes. So I play an E flat, and it outputs an E flat, as I remember, a G sharp, and a C sharp. This is very confusing. I would prefer if it showed flats. So E flat, A flat, D flat, because I'm thinking in terms of the strings just being E, A, D, G, and so on. I want it to just be flat of the standard tuning notation. So that's the little thing that I would want to tweak. The other thing, I would want a different colored LED where the boost is. You'll notice that the entire section, including the boost, has red LEDs. Now that's fine, and I get why they've done that, is because it all belongs to the OMG pedal, which is Richie's signature drive pedal, and it has a boost included in it. So they've made it so that the entire section of drive is in red. However, on a stage, I struggle to see whether the boost is on. These LEDs are quite bright and they'll glare, and it's very difficult to see whether the last red LED is on or not. You could reuse the blue. I think the delay is in blue. You could have that on the boost because it would be a nice contrast next to the red, and it would let you know whether the boost was on. I would probably get rid of the headphone out. It's maybe a useful feature, but I feel like you might be able to take some off the price if you were to remove the headphone out. It's nothing against the sound of it, it's just not a feature that I use, and you've got an amplifier, and also this output jack has to alternate between stereo and mono. I think that if you remove that, it might drop in price, just a snip, which wouldn't be a bad thing. I think these offer fantastic value for money, but I also think that they would be able to sell more if they could get the price down even a little bit. Because as it stands, sometimes they push up towards 400 quid, 380 or something like that in the UK. You can get them cheaper sometimes, but if you manage to get it somewhere between 250 and 300, I think they would be flying off the shelves because it's such a practical solution for a lot of players. I've sent them a message in the past about having an impulse response, and they said they wanted to stay in the analog realm, and I totally respect that. It would be my preference to have an IR, and I've run this into an impulse response with great success. However, having had my regular modeling device throw a hissy fit last week on a gig, and it's one of these ones where you need an app in order to change any of the settings, and it randomly decided to assign some kind of drive pedal or something to my delay. So there's two things happening at the same time, and I couldn't do anything about it. On the gig, I had no way of plugging the stupid thing in to reset it. So I just had to play the gig with this death metal amount of overdrive. I like the fact that this doesn't do that, and I respect the fact that they just want to stay all analog. It's a really cool thing, and actually a selling point for me that there are no edit menus or any of that kind of stuff on this. So I'm not too fussed about not having an impulse response. The delay section is absolutely fantastic, and I like the Leslie. However, I would use the Leslie more if I could access it without having to get down to the floor and press this button. At the moment, you can only access the Leslie by pressing this button. I think it would be better if it was possible to be able to hold this delay down for an extended period of time, and then access it that way. And then once you're in the Leslie, the delay would simply function as an on-off as it does right now. Hold it down for 2 seconds and it's back to being a delay. I feel I would get a lot more usage out of the Leslie, which is a really nice Leslie, if I could do it without having to press the button every time. Other than that, it's a fantastic unit. It is a fantastic unit anyway. It sounds like I've absolutely pulled it apart, but that's not my intention here. I'm using this in spite of these things that I would like to tweak. This is a wonderful piece of gear, and has pretty much replaced my entire rig other than the burn unit, which I'm using in conjunction. I would rather the paint job was something a little bit more minimalist. Richie has this whole medieval vibe going on with his house, I've seen in a couple of interviews. So they've done it on those lines. It's red with all this kind of scrolly pattern stuff. All right, it's neat. It's an interesting looking product, but I like things to be a little bit less obtrusive on stage, just so that people are less inclined to go, "Oh, you're using all of these pedals, you must be good with all of this gear." You know, the stupid things that people say in pubs. If it was just black or gunmetal grey, or kind of like the VT500 bass amp. I've recently bought the Tech 21 VT500 bass amp. They no longer make that. Brilliant amp. Would be really cool to get this Sounds amp in the form of a guitar head, but I understand that they're no longer making amplifiers. The cost is prohibitive. But that same sort of aesthetic, the black and silver, I think is a really nice look. It really does sound like I've pulled it apart, and that wasn't my intention, but I'm just going to quickly list out the things in order of importance for me. Smooth drive sound. that's what I want to change primarily. Having a pre-post on the boost, holding down the delay so I'm able to access the rotary without having to press the button, a slightly larger display on the tuner and outputting flats, a different color LED on the boost so that I can tell whether it's on or off, and then the other things, removing the headphone thing. You know, if it saves a little bit of money, I'd sacrifice that, and a slightly less medieval red and go for something more minimalist in terms of the overall aesthetic. Other than that, this is a killer unit, and I highly recommend that you check them out. If you're the kind of player that just gets by on drive and delay, and you want a tuner and a little bit of Leslie on occasion, this is a superb sounding unit, and yeah, it might stop quite a lot of option paralysis and gas as well. It's got dots in that. It's not flatulence. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Later.